Boston Celtics were eliminated in the 2025 NBA playoffs by the New York Knicks, and they have to be one of, if not the most interesting team to watch this offseason. It was before the Jason Tatum injury and even after it, as they are so far over the salary cap right now. They have new ownership coming in. They lost out on a ton of playoff revenue since they lost in round number 2, and we are expecting this team to look drastically different next year. And I think if you ask any media analyst, just anybody out there, how would you value some of these contracts? Everybody would give you a different answer. Do you even think Jrue Holiday has a ton of value, or Kristaps Porzingis on an expiring contract? So for today's episode of the Just Ballin' podcast, we are going to look at a bunch of different trade ideas for the Celtics this offseason, depending on which route they want to go and if they want to maybe contend in 2026, or if this is somewhat of like a retool year, pretty much how the Warriors intended 2020 to go when Klay Thompson was out for the year and they ended up getting the second overall pick in the draft. And I'm really excited to see what Brad Stevens does this offseason, because he, I think, really emerged as one of the best front office executives in the NBA. Now, he was a coach for a while in Boston. He already had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the team, but the 2022 trade deadline, when they ended up getting Derek White, was a fantastic move. 2022 trade deadline as well, or excuse me, the following offseason when they traded for Kristaps Porzingis, and you get Jrue Holiday, and you really just build a contending team that quickly after taking over the job. I know it was a good team he inherited, but still, I think Brad Stevens is going to do what's right for the Celtics' future. And I think it's fascinating the couple directions that they could go in this offseason, because there's a bunch of just different routes they can go in. They are $20 million into the second apron. They're $32 million into the first apron. This team cannot physically afford this roster next year. And Jason Tatum is out for the year with the torn Achilles, which is a damn shame. This team was probably going to look different before the Achilles rupture, but now it's definitely going to look different next year. I believe they can apply for the disabled player exception, which I think they can get the most amount given what Tatum's getting paid. So that could be like $15 million, but they want to shed some cap to begin with. So I think we could just run through a bunch of Celtics trade ideas this offseason. I think if you're looking in the Eastern Conference, I don't see them making a trade with Cleveland at the top. Definitely not the Knicks. I doubt the Indiana Pacers. I mean, there's one dumb trade. I don't think it's dumb, but there's one idea you could talk about. Like, does Giannis for Jaylen Brown make any sense? Jaylen Brown is as good of a player that Milwaukee can get back. I just don't think like, the contracts would get fairly close, but yeah, you're going to have to make like different trades for Boston to get under the apron. But basically, yeah, it's just like, I don't think Milwaukee would want to send Giannis to the Celtics, just because of in division, and they kind of helped them win the 2024 title by trading for Dame, and then Portland rerouted Jrue to Boston. I just don't see it happening. It's a fun idea. It's a fun thing to think about, but I just think Boston is not going to make something like that right now. Now, I think Detroit has some opportunities to call the Boston Celtics this offseason, because they have some free agents of their own. Jaden Ivey could get extended. I think coming off the injury, he's not going to get extended this offseason, but the Cade contract's fully kicking in. Tobias turns into an expiring. Jalen Duren can get extended this offseason. Asar Thompson could get extended next offseason. So could they look to acquire some contracts going forward? Now, I think it really depends on how you value Jrue Holiday, because this is where I was saying this in the intro, that you ask anybody, like, ask different people, they're going to give you a completely different answer on what you think Jrue Holiday is worth, because he's getting paid $30 million next year, or $32.5 million, excuse me, $34.5 million in 27, and then a $37 million player option in 2028 when he's going to be 37 years old. The numbers did dip this year, but if you watch the Celtics, it's not because of Jrue Holiday specifically. He was the fourth, sometimes the fifth or sixth most important offensive guy out there. He's out there for his connectiveness and for his three-point shooting, which took a little bit of a hit, but also his defense. And he's played in big games before, but I think this could be a Detroit Piston for sure, because Detroit, they're not a big free agency destination. They don't have to give up draft capital, in my opinion, to get Jrue Holiday, or at least, yeah, I don't think they would. And Holiday, I think he's going to be good next year in his 35 season. So say you notice a little bit of a fall off, we'll say at the start of the 2027 or 6 season, or wait, how many more years we have left on this deal? So he's under contract for 3 years, right? So say next year he looks fine. Say, all right, 2027 isn't great. You know what? It's a 1-year expiring deal in 2028. It's not the end of the world if 2027, 2028. I mean, like, you don't want to have that much money on your books, but like, I think Detroit could be an interesting team, because they may lose Dennis Schroeder this offseason. And replacing Dennis Schroeder with Drew Holiday in that role. Oh my God, you're like it's just like Dennis Schroeder on steroids, or Dennis Schroeder on like Barry Bonds steroids, going to Drew Holiday as a complimentary defender to Cade, someone that could be a spot up 3-point shooter, and now you can have Drew Holiday and Asar Thompson defending together out there. That's incredible. And you don't have to touch Asar, you don't have to touch Ron Holland. Honestly, like Simone Fontecchio, Marcus Sasser, and Detroit has some cap flexibility this offseason. You can kind of absorb this. I don't know if you would have to include Tobias Harris. That may have to be somebody that needs to be involved, but then Boston kind of gets a little bit difficult in that deal as well. Let me actually just remove Fontecchio from this trade machine. So say you did, okay, yeah, Drew Holiday for Sasser and Tobias Harris. Now, I think Boston like should think about this. I know it's kind of like not exciting that you're not getting a first round pick back or any type of asset for Drew Holiday for somebody that was so important to your team that won the 2024 NBA Finals. But I think the fact that you can get Sasser, hey, it's a young guard. Just take a flyer on him, and you get Tobias Harris is expiring. That can at least give you some reps and depth next year, especially because we don't know what's going on with Horford. Will he retire? Will he be back? Because if he's going to be back, he's going to be back in Boston, and they'll agree to some deal. I don't hate this for Boston, or maybe they can reroute Sasser for a big man. I think it's an idea for Detroit to go after Drew, for sure. I don't really think that they would be a Kristaps team, to be honest with you. I think they could be a Sam Hauser team, and I think that's a contract that Boston could try to get off of. It's not a great deal by any means. So Hauser is making, okay, so the extension kicks in next year, or is this I could be reading this wrong. His contract kicks in, it kicks in next year. So it's basically $40+ million, $45 million over 4 years. It's not great because Hauser, I think, is a fine defender, fine 3-point shooter, but I don't know if any team would really want to commit to that. But hey, say they don't want to give Malik Beasley $70 million. Would you just get Sam Hauser and maybe get a first-round pick for taking it on? Like, would you take pick 28 and Sam Hauser and you kind of just give them Fontecchio? Because Fontecchio, that would work. And you know what? Hauser, I think, could be a nice 3-and-D asset for you. Maybe not the best defender in the world, but hey, he could be a really good spot-up shooter for you coming off the bench, off-movement shooter. Way better than I think Fontecchio was for you this year, who, I mean, never really got going. So, I don't know. I think Detroit does have some interesting ideas with Boston, and I would not be surprised if they made a trade with each other. I mean, Orlando could be all over Sam Hauser this offseason. I wonder if they would really want to make trades. I don't know how Boston felt against Orlando in round 1. But hey, could they do Kristaps Porzingis for some... It's probably like they don't really have expirings, and I don't think Boston is in the market for Wendell Carter Jr. or Jonathan Isaac, who I think has some non-guarantees to his contract, which also could be a guy that could come back. But yeah, I think Orlando could for sure be all over Sam Hauser this offseason. I don't know if they would be a Kristaps team. Atlanta, I mean, Drew was like perfect next to Trey, but it'd be very tough to get there financially for Atlanta right now, and I don't think that'd be worth it. Chicago, no, unless they're getting money to take on a bad contract, which, you know what? Like, I don't know. Say you gave them Zach Collins. It's impossible right now to aggregate money, but say you gave them like Vucevic and Collins and you can get Holiday and some draft capital. I don't know. It's an idea, right? Miami and Boston, I doubt, are making a trade together. They just had too much bad blood in the playoffs recently. I would be shocked if they agreed on a deal. Toronto, I don't think they would be a KP team, honestly. Like, Brooklyn could make sense for a couple different ways. I mean, I don't think Brooklyn is really targeting Jaylen Brown right now. I think they would like to be Giannis or bust this offseason in terms of those names, but Brooklyn can easily absorb KP's $30 million expiring. Say you send back like Maxwell Lewis, and I mean, I don't even know what Kristaps' value would have. Say it's just a first round pick in Maxwell Lewis for this. So this doesn't even work. You would have to cut $26 million from the Nets. I feel like the Nets, I feel like the Nets have cap space to absorb this in, or I guess you would have to re-announce the rights on a ton of these cap holds as well. So yeah, the Nets are projected to have a decent amount of cap space this offseason. So that is an idea. Kristaps just goes to Brooklyn. You can run some two big man lineups out there, but I think it's more so he would get rerouted. I doubt Philly would make a trade with Boston. Charlotte, I mean, Charlotte, like, yeah, it's just basically KP for Yusuf Nurkic. I don't think they would want to do that, but you do save $11 million there. I think they would be a Sam Hauser team. But I think really you're going Washington. I mean, Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart for Drew Holiday. What do we think about that, right? I think one idea that's really interesting, if they were going to think about Jaylen Brown, there's very few teams that I think would make sense. And I think they actually all reside in the state of Texas, which is kind of hilarious. So say they were willing to trade Jaylen Brown, and they're going to reshuffle this roster in 2027 around Jason Tatum, and they're going to try to handle the second apron very well. Because hey, in the modern NBA with the second apron and everything that's involved right there, it gets very difficult to build these teams over time. And that's why it's going to be fascinating to watch OKC when their cap space dwindles and dwindles, when Shea gets the super max and J-Dub and Chet get extended this offseason on rookie maxes. And you're already paying Dort, and Hardenstein only has 1 year left guaranteed money. They're going to be interesting to watch. San Antonio's in a good sweet spot right now, and I wonder if they're just watching Boston's, not window close, but hey, it didn't look as easy as it did a year ago. Would they think about, okay, let's get Kevin Durant this offseason? And then by the time Kevin Durant's kind of like done in the NBA, he won't overlap with Wemby's extension and stuff like that going forward, and Castle's extension and Harper's extension. So I think Houston could realize this as well. I mean, you're going to have to give up something to get something. I don't think Boston would have any desire in taking back Jalen Green. So maybe it's a Fred VanVleet, like he picks up the team option, and then you're going to have to throw in probably Jabari Smith Jr., and maybe Cam Whitmore. Like, I don't think you have to throw in Reed Shepherd, Amen Thompson. Like, say you did this. This doesn't work financially. I mean, you have to cut $4 million from the Celtics. This would basically be Van Vliet, Jabari Smith, and Cam Whitmore. I would have to cut $4 million from the Celtics to make this successful. Okay, yes, because we are going over. And then, like, say Sam Hauser goes back. I mean, that's not like... It's not terrible. Now, we can't aggregate contracts right now because they are a second apron team. But it's an idea, right? Like, it's an idea to get Jaylen Brown to Houston. They have some draft capital they can involve in this deal. Jabari Smith Jr. can get paid this summer. I don't know if they will. Jaylen Brown, I think if Jabari Smith still hits his peak, that's probably around Jaylen Brown is. I just don't want to overrate Jaylen Brown. I know he does have a finals MVP. He was an All-NBA player 2 years ago. But that contract gets pretty hefty. And how does he look as a number one? Something we haven't really seen in his career. That's why I'm like really excited to see if Boston does not move Jaylen Brown this offseason, which I would say the odds are Brad Stevens wants to keep Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum together. How is he going to look as a number one next year? I think it's going to be really interesting to see Jaylen Brown either take advantage of that opportunity. Can he average career highs across the board with above average efficiency with that volume increase? Because we're going to see that volume increase. Or does Jaylen Brown struggle as a number one, getting guarded by team's best players? The efficiency drops, the true shooting drops, and you're like, okay, this is what Jaylen Brown is. And that can really hit his long-term trade value as well in this league. So I think Houston would be all over, or they would be interested in Jaylen Brown, but maybe they're like, okay, if it's not Giannis, we'd rather just kind of run our young core back next year, because they've like a ton of depth over there in Houston. Like, you still have Brooks, you have Jalen Green, you have Shepherd, you have Amen Thompson, you have Tari Eason, you have the 10th pick in this draft. They're going to have a lot of depth and are going to be fighting for a 1 seed next year with or without Jaylen Brown. Like I said, the other teams that could make sense are all in Texas. Like, could San Antonio want to go after Jaylen Brown? Does Devin Vassell intrigue Boston? I think if their fans are hesitant to give up Castle and Giannis, like, can you do Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan? I don't know if pick 2 is a lot, but you could maybe do like a bunch of other first round picks. You can keep Dylan Harper, you can get Jaylen Brown, and you can offer Boston a ton of flexibility long term, which is probably what they value in a deal. Cut $10 million from the Spurs to make this work. So you'd have to throw in, like, Harrison Barnes is expiring as well. How close does this get there? This actually kind of works. So Vassell, Barnes, Sohan, 14, Atlantis first, and another first for Jaylen Brown. I don't know if you're going to have to take a tax hit because of that contract. But if you're also looking at this return for Boston, would you be like, why do we even want to trade Jaylen Brown for Devin Vassell headlining a package, but we get the 14th pick? I'm just saying it just allows you to have more flexibility going forward around Jason Tatum, and maybe having Sohan under his rookie extension and Vassell under this deal and a rookie with the 14th pick. If you love somebody there, if you think that could be like a Danny Wolf in this offense, or you think that could be a Thomas Sorber or Cedric Coward or somebody like that, I think it could make sense for Brad Stevens to go after them. But I don't know. I don't think you're getting Stephon Castle for Jaylen Brown. For what San Antonio is building, I don't think they need to rush it at the moment, because they're going to be fine with or without Jaylen Brown. And then the other one would just be Dallas, right? Like, would they trade number one? The only issue is you're not just trading one, you're trading PJ, you're trading Clay, you're trading Caleb, and I don't even think that's enough. You have to trade 12.7 more. So, like, would you trade Gafford I don't really know. You're basically gutting this team for Jaylen Brown, and you would have Jaylen Brown. I mean, this trade alone is interesting coming back. Like 4 role players for. I mean, Boston's not doing this. I know that, but this would. Yeah, you'd have to cut $1.5 million from the Celtics. So, yeah, you can take back Bale or Shireman, I guess, in this deal. Does that work? It does not. You would have to. Okay, so yeah, this is second apron stuff. So they have to make a corresponding deal, and that's what just makes it a little difficult for them because they'll have to make a corresponding deal to get under the apron if they want to aggregate some contracts. Cooper Flagg to Boston. I mean, I think Boston worked out with Flagg, but I don't think Nico is going to trade the number 1 pick. Now, a fun team is the Phoenix Suns, who we know we're probably going to trade Kevin Durant this offseason. It doesn't make a lot of sense to run this team back. I don't think they're going to trade Devin Booker, although I haven't really expected anything that they were going to do so far in this new regime. But I do think they will trade Kevin Durant this offseason. They're a second apron team as well, so second apron versus second apron making a trade together should just cancel each other out, and we could throw out the rules. That actually would be kind of funny, but they would have to make each corresponding moves, but Phoenix can get under the second apron pretty easily this offseason. They could waive Cody Martin. They could probably find a team to take on Royce O'Neal. They'll decline Vasily Misic's team option. So Kevin Durant for like Drew Holiday. Would you rather have Drew Holiday or Kristaps if you're Phoenix? I mean, you need a big, and I guess you can say like, could we get Sam Hauser, Kristaps Porzingis, and 28 as well as like a future first rounder? In 20, oh, man, this is so interesting. It's really tough though. Like, say you do a 2031 swap. Let's see. Phoenix does not even have a swap to move. This is why Phoenix is so hard to move right now. Can I just trade? Let me do this. Unprotected to the Suns. I don't even think Boston can do this because they have some issues here, but the idea is basically you're getting Sam Hauser and Kristaps Porzingis like depth pieces. You get off of the money and you get first round picks, but I think this can easily get outbid by other teams. So I just think unless Bradley Beal's involved and like KD and Beal, and then Beal gets to reunite with Tatum, and now this team's going to get even more expensive. I'm trying to figure out a way to get Kevin Durant in Boston for a year. And then they could see if they want to do a little 2-year extension on top of that. You would have Kevin Durant and Jaylen Brown, which you could now still have Jaylen Brown as a number 2, but Kevin Durant is surrounded by Jaylen Brown and either Drew or KP, and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, and maybe Al Horford coming back for a year. Like, that still puts Kevin Durant in a good situation. It gets Kevin Durant to the Eastern Conference, and Boston can still try to compete in this window that they have right now. But then again, like, it gets very difficult with Phoenix and their second apron stuff. You probably have to get a third team involved, which, I mean, who's helping orchestrate a trade this offseason? Is it Brooklyn? Like, are we getting Drew? I mean, can we get Drew to Phoenix? Can we get Nick Claxton to Phoenix? And then you get Kevin Durant to Boston, and you get Kristaps to Brooklyn. I mean, you would have to really map down this in the spreadsheets and really figure out if this money works, because the second apron stuff, it just complicates a lot. It really does. And I think if Brooklyn's getting some draft capital, they could be interested in that. I don't know how Drew Holiday works. I mean, Drew and Booker in the backcourt's great, but now you're still running into this issue with Bradley Beal at the 3, and it didn't work. You need to have, I mean, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker don't work. They didn't from the start, and I still don't think they will post Kevin Durant. I just think Kevin Durant in Phoenix or in Boston is a really fun idea this offseason. I mean, you're running through some teams. Yeah, I think you're just going to look for expiring contracts this offseason. CJ McCollum, he could be a fun offensive guy in Boston. I mean, would New Orleans be interested in doing CJ McCollum for Drew Holiday? Drew Holiday goes back to New Orleans, where he had some really good years in his career. That works out. You get out of the McCollum contract, you get out of the Drew contract. I'd assume because of New Orleans taking on the financial burden of Holiday's contract, you may have to throw in some swaps in that deal. But I think, hey, that's an interesting idea. McCollum gives you another ball handler, another scorer. Now that Tatum is out, really good three-point shooter, can chuck them up in Missoula's offense going forward. But then I'm like wondering who is going to be the big on this team next year. And there's not a lot of teams that have like an excess of bigs at the moment that would be willing to take on like Kristaps, I think, right now. Like, I don't think Golden State, I mean, Drew in Golden State is great, but Drew on $20 million a year in Golden State is great. Now Drew making $30 million for the next 3 years, that really gets difficult. How do they feel about Kristaps? But then you got to get to $30 million, which you're trading Draymond or Jimmy in Golden State. So I don't really think that would make a lot of sense going forward. LA, I mean, like, I don't think they would want Kristaps. I don't think he's as good of like a rim runner, alley-oop catcher. And you need somebody that you could bank on being healthy in the playoffs, and Kristaps is kind of the last guy. I mean, the illness has been so weird, and he dealt with injuries this year again in his career. And LeBron, you can't really afford to take those risks this offseason, but it's an idea. I think Derek White is going nowhere. Peyton Pritchard's obviously going nowhere. Tatum's obviously going nowhere. It really comes down to most likely the 3 most likely guys are Kristaps, Hauser, and Holiday. If I had to rank in terms of netting value in return, I would say like Drew is more valuable as a player than Kristaps, but the contract, I think it turns it the other way. I don't think you really have to attach too much to a $30 million Kristaps deal. Like, hey, you call up Charlotte. I mean, I don't think they're going to be interested in Miles Bridges, but could you be interested in a Grant Williams reunion? I think they like him in Charlotte as a veteran. Could you be interested in Josh Green for Kristaps Porzingis? I think Charlotte would be intrigued by the idea. There would have to be some money involved as well. I mean, you would have to maybe get Hauser in this. Actually, no, I'm going the wrong way. You would have to do, like, say you send out Josh Okogie. I mean, that's not terrible. Aggregating contracts is also tough here with the second apron. But I think, yeah, you're calling up Charlotte, seeing if they would take on Kristaps in a salary dump. Brooklyn, all those teams as well that are okay being bad next year. The Jazz, maybe. Is there a way to do John Collins for Kristaps Porzingis in an opt-in, and then you can really see if you like him there? You may have to attach in a first-round pick this year, because why would Utah want to help you out there? Would Danny Ainge even want to make a trade with the Boston Celtics right now? Would the Celtics even want to make a trade with the Utah Jazz right now? I don't know. There's also some, like, behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't really know about. But I think, like I said, they're a fascinating team this offseason. I think if they're listening to Jaylen Brown deals, I think all the Texas teams wouldn't make sense. I think they would like to trade him to the Western Conference. If there would be like a sneaky East team, maybe Detroit, maybe Brooklyn, but that's within the division. I don't know if Washington would be ready to really go for it right now. And I don't really think they can afford to trade some of their assets in exchange for Jaylen Brown. So I think he would end up in the Western Conference, unless we're talking like Jalen for Giannis, which I don't think is happening this offseason. Could Portland look for a number 1? Maybe. I mean, you could somehow get Denny of Dion. I mean, under a good contract. But no, I think that's tough. I think it's more likely that it's Hauser, KP, and Holiday that get moved this offseason. I think Hauser, you could find a team that could be okay absorbing the $45 million, but I think it's more likely for KP and Holiday to also be moved. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments here on YouTube. What is Boston going to do this offseason? If you guys want to see this with maybe other teams, let me know down below. Do you want to see me talk about Denver Nuggets trade ideas this offseason? The fact that they lost in round number 2, and it seems like they need to shuffle up this team after disappointing result for their standards after losing in the second round last year and the second round this year as well. And if you want to see this with any other teams, you can let me know. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, really appreciate a rating and review. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.